The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everybody to this 10-minute podcast where I'm going to share with you a few of my experiences of working as a school business manager and being responsible for risk management. To help you understand my role, I will take a few minutes to describe the context of my school, as this will help you to understand the nature of my role. I am a school business manager in a two-form-entry primary academy where over 60% of the children have English as an additional language. The eligibility for free school meals is approximately 25%. There are 420 pupils and 80 staff, and other initiatives we are involved in are that we are a lead school of a Teaching School Alliance, we are also a national support school, and a provider of school-based initial teacher training, which is known as SKIT. So as you can imagine, the role and responsibilities are very varied. There are 4 areas to risk, and these are strategic risk, financial, operational, and reputational risk. I won't be able to talk about all these areas, so I'm going to focus on a couple. When my school was a maintained school over 4 years ago, I do not recall being involved in risk to the same extent as I am now. I was responsible for managing health and safety and all of the risk assessments that this included, but I was never aware of the other aspects of risk. I suppose I first became aware during the process of converting to an academy, and during one of those early meetings with auditors, I was asked if the academy had a risk register. You never like to admit to an auditor that you don't have what they are looking for in place, but on this occasion I had no choice. Within 24 hours I had been sent an Excel spreadsheet which was a template for a risk register. At the time, I was studying for the ADSBM and had to prepare a business case for a project, and the project I chose to do was the conversion from a maintained school to an academy. Included in my business case was a section on identifying risk, and for each item identified, I had to calculate the probability of the event happening and the likely impact on the business should the event happen. So I spent numerous hours adapting the template to suit the needs of my school, and line by line I worked through each potential risk and grading the likelihood of the event happening and the impact it would have if the event occurred. The grades available were low, medium and high. As you can imagine, I ended up with a long list of risks, in excess of 50, and 2 columns headed up with probability and impact, with either an L, an M, or an H in each of the line of my spreadsheet. By the time I had finished, I had so much information, I found it hard to identify what it was telling me. If asked a question by an auditor again, do you have a risk register, I knew I would be able to say yes. But if asked a question, do you manage risk, I knew I would not be able to answer yes, as I was not acting on the information my spreadsheet gave me. For my ADSBM business case, Risk Register, I carried out research into the various types of risk registers available, and I came across some with colour coding, i.e. it coloured green for low probability and low impact, amber for medium probability and medium impact, and red for high probability and high impact. There were a few more combinations, but this gives you an idea of how each risk was colour-coded. I therefore set about adding colour to my register, and instantly it enabled me to identify what I had to focus on. Anything coloured red had to be managed immediately. Anything amber still had to be actioned, but not quite so urgently, and anything green was no need to worry for now. When thinking about risk management, you have to be able to evidence that you are managing it. So this meant having compiled my colour-coded risk register, it was no good filing it away to bring out the next time the auditors were in. Instead, it was a starting point to take action. I then produced a one-page summary report detailing the main risks and outlined any action required and by when, and then this was sent to all of the trustees. For each entry on the report, I enter a review date, which helps me to plan the action required. I now update the summary report every 3 months, ensuring that any changes are reflected in the register. My risk register has helped me to identify the hazards, which has allowed me to decide who might be harmed and how. By taking the time to focus on each risk, it has enabled me to stop and really consider how best to manage each one. I have identified the precautions which need to be taken and put measures in place to try and implement them. By establishing a review date, I am able to ensure that risk management is ongoing and not a task that gets completed once a year. One of the areas I have had to address is safer recruitment, as I became aware that all of the pre-employment checks that were being carried out were not recorded on a summary sheet, so it was difficult to keep track of what stage a prospective member of staff had got to within the process. I decided to carry out a thorough review of the whole recruitment process, which meant working with other senior leaders to get their advice, but the end result is we now have a really robust recruitment process which complies with all of the safer recruitment guidelines. Being a national support school and a lead school for a Teaching School Alliance, the risk of not maintaining our outstanding Ofsted grading is one of the risks that needs to be carefully managed. As School Business Manager, I am a member of the senior leadership team and therefore have the opportunity to challenge teachers when they present their termly assessment data. I am conscious that a teacher may not appreciate how important it is that our assessment data meets the criteria of outstanding, as they may not understand the wider implications to the organisation. I don't issue the risk register to all staff, as this is clearly not appropriate, but an awareness by all senior leaders as to the consequences of a decline in standards helps to ensure that this message gets communicated to all staff. We regularly have schools we are supporting through our National Support School status come to visit us for the day. For example, if they have an inset day for all of their teachers and teaching assistants, they all come along and spend the day observing lessons and talking to our staff, and we have had up to 70 staff visit on one occasion. Trying to manage our reputational risk is key, and there are many areas of risk that have to be managed to ensure that this is maintained when the whole school comes under such scrutiny. We also have 20 SCIT trainees, and one of their training sessions was on the role of the teaching assistant. So a TA was invited to come and talk to the trainees for 15 minutes about the role of a TA. Each of the trainees works in a different school, so any issue they get to hear of at our school, where they are there 1 day a week, and that's where the training takes place, any issue can therefore be into 20 local schools in the area by the next day. Imagine then the horror of hearing that the TA who was asked to speak to the trainees was a lady who was leaving at the end of that week and had become very disgruntled with our school, and she used the opportunity to communicate her grievances to all 20 trainees. The reputational risk had to be managed immediately, otherwise the negative comments that would have been communicated into the local area would have had a very negative impact for us. Luckily, the SCIT manager had stayed in the room and realised what was happening and was able to very quickly cut short the lady's presentation. An apology and an explanation of the difficulties that teachers have to face ensuring all staff are kept happy seemed to ensure the trainees' focus was swiftly directed onto how they would deal with a disgruntled member of staff if that person was working as part of their team when they become a qualified teacher. I hope that I've conveyed to you what being a school business manager responsible for risk management is all about, and that there are numerous risks to manage, and there will always be new ones presenting themselves without warning. The most effective way of dealing with risk is therefore to have a culture where risk management is the norm and all senior leaders are aware of the probability of risk and understand the various levels of impact should a risk occur. Thank you for listening.